Did you know that choosing the right fly size and shape are the key to triggering a trout to eat? Today, I'm going to show you how to figure that out. Coming up right now.
Whoa! Hey there, big boy!
Another one?
Where are you going? Yeah, to see if he thought he was a steelhead. Yeah! Woo! Yeah! Woo! Woo! Man! Whole
How's that?
steelhead inside. Small steelhead here.
You're used to football.
I'm used to football, not the slimy, generally speaking. Let's see. Woo! Oh, it's a toad! It is a toad!
Is there such a thing as the perfect fly for trout fishing? Hey everybody, I'm Mike Pulaski. Welcome to Familiar Waters and FWFishing.com. Today we're talking about picking the right fly size. Obviously, when everybody gets started fly fishing, early on, you're trying to figure out, there's a ton of stuff to do, learning how to cast, learning how to wade, learning how to tie knots, learning how to select bugs. And today we're talking about picking bugs for fly fishing because there's a couple criteria that make it a whole lot easier. And so we're going to talk about bugs, we're going to talk about insects, we're going to talk about the size of insects, which way to miss if you're going to miss. But let's start with, is there such a thing as a perfect bug? And there are days when fish will be selective and they will get down to figuring out, they'll be focused on one species of bug, one type of bug. Generally speaking, during any hatch, though, I've seen there are several different types of flies. Fly tiers are always tying flies to try to match different hatches. And so it could be PMDs, it could be caddis, it can be, bluewing olives, it could be green drakes, stoneflies, all of it. You have anglers and fly tiers who have tied flies to match that hatch. So in terms of one perfect bug, there's probably several patterns on the market, or maybe even dozens of patterns on the market for every hatch that comes off. And so being able to match that hatch with something on the market, those flies are pretty prevalent. It should be fairly easy to do. The biggest thing, the number one thing that you should be thinking about when you are trying to find the right fly for trout is size. The size of the bug is the very first key, the trigger that these trout are looking for. Now, I'm not a biologist by nature. I'm just telling you about 40 plus years of fly fishing experience on the river. And so size has been the number one determining factor as these trout are trying to figure out what's food, what's not food, make a go, no-go decision, and trigger to eat that bug. If you haven't done it yet, make sure you subscribe. Hit that button down below, give us a thumbs up, and leave us a comment because we'd love to hear from you. Now, let's talk about bugs. Let's think about what trout are doing on a daily, minute-by-minute, second-by-second basis in the river. We give them a lot of credit for being super smart, just like turkey hunters give turkeys a lot of credit for being super smart. The truth is, trout aren't necessarily smart, however, they are scared. They know that everything out there that they can't put in their mouth, that they can't eat, is also trying to eat them and poses a threat. And so what they are trying to do is what most wildlife is trying to do. And they're trying to get maximum energy from minimum effort in the stream to sustain life, to procreate, and to keep their environment, their territory. And so those are really their main drives: food, safety, breeding, period. And if they can get those covered, then they are in good shape. When it comes to feeding, the part about safety is a huge part because trout are trying to get the most bang for their buck. And so if there is a lot of one bug in the drift and they know that they can eat this bug with repetition, they're going to go after that bug. That's when they start getting selective, as we call it in fly fishing, because they are focused on that bug. They know they're getting the most bang for their buck because they're eating this one. They're seeing a lot of it in the drift. And what happens in these rivers is not only during hatches when flies come off and mature and go from, the nymph to the emerger to the dun stage, but there's also what's called a drift phase where nymphs and immature insects will kind of redistribute throughout the stream, and they get into the drift and they move through, and it's a way of redistributing populations and kind of growing the population. So it's a survival mechanism for them as well. But for trout, what they are trying to do is they are trying to get the most efficient means of getting calories in. Think about bugs, right? How small they are. And think about how many calories, if there's a full calorie in each bug. I don't think there is, but how many bugs it takes to get enough calories for a trout to survive in an environment where they are constantly working, constantly upright, trying to keep their position in the stream and do all those other things, grow, procreate, etc. And so their goal is to, as efficiently as possible, get bugs in their gullet that will help them do all of those things. So with that thought in mind, let's talk about fly size. If you have a ton of insects that are emerging or in the drift, they're probably at the same life cycle stage. And if it's mayflies or caddis, it's emergers coming off that fish are seeing that they're triggering on, they're all going to be about the same size. And so because of that, trout are keyed into a specific size bug. If they've got bugs that are in the drift trying to redistribute, it's also going to be about the same size. They're probably going to be within one size or another of each other. And so that's the size that trout are going to get focused on. Trout don't think like people. And as fishermen, we oftentimes think that fish think like we do. Bigger is not always better if you are a trout. They're not like, ooh, look, there's a big hamburger. I'm going to go get that because, you know, it's delicious and it's big and it'll fill me up. No, they are focused on safety, on ease, on efficiency. So whatever's in the drift is what they're going to eat. And so getting that size just right to match the insects that are in the drift at the time that trout are used to eating is absolutely essential. Now, there may be a couple bugs. You may have a size 14 PMD nymph or a size 16 PMD nymph and a size 20 blue-wing olive nymph in the drift. And so trout may be triggering on both, or different trout may be triggering on different size bugs, and that can happen. And so it's not like you have to focus down and find the exact right bug. Again, it gets back to what I was talking about at the top. You just have to find a bug that works for trout that are feeding, that are eating actively. The other thing you want to think about is being observant. What are the fish doing? Where are they feeding? Are they feeding low in the water column? Are they staying near the bottom, eating, down low? Are they at mid-depth? Are they right beneath the surface film or in the surface film? And are you seeing noses? And so those all tell you something different about what the fish are eating. If they're down low, they're eating nymphs. It's something in the drift near the bottom. That bug is probably going to be smaller and darker. And so nymphs, immature insects, other bugs like crest bugs, sow bugs, those kind of things in the river, and scuds are going to be a darker color because they naturally camouflage in their environment. So those are the ones that survive. But that camouflage is part of it. If you have a tan river bottom, they'll probably be more tan. If you have a green river bottom or greener shades with grasses and such, they're probably going to be more green. And so they're going to be somewhere in that gamut of colors between tan and black, so that they can blend into the bottom environment in the stream. But if trout are feeding down low, that's where they're going to be. If trout are feeding in that mid-column depth, they're probably on emergers. And that's because those bugs are starting to pop. They're starting to come up off the bottom and go up through that water column towards the surface to transform into the adult, the done phase. And so as they're coming up off that bottom, you get better light penetration. A lot of bugs tend to form a gas bubble inside their outer husk, and it can reflect light. It makes them lighter. And so a lighter, flashier bug as you go up through the water column is a better call as well. So dark bugs at the bottom, flashier bugs at the mid-depth, and then up at the water surface, we're talking about emergers and duns. And so life stage makes a difference when you're choosing a fly and a fly size that you're fishing for trout as well. Choosing between flies like, say, a massive size 4 Pteronarcis nymph here, big black salmon fly nymph, or a size 18, you see this tiny little thing here? Size 18 Caddis pupa, comes down to what the trout are feeding on. There's various sizes of bugs, various life stages of those bugs as well. And so knowing the difference matters. So how do you figure out what size these fish are eating? Well, there's a couple ways to do it. First, do your recon. Know before you go to the river, nowadays with the internet being what it is, You can find fly shop blogs online, guide blogs online. You can find articles online. As a matter of fact, we've got a great article on choosing the right fly size and on several rivers out there and on different techniques. If you go to fwfishing.com, we'll put the link down below, and I'll put the link to that blog about choosing the right fly size in the description section as well. But you can go online and figure out what bugs are hatching, what size range they're in, what you should expect when you hit the river. And there'll be a ton of information out there. There's apps to actually tell you exactly what you're looking at on the river nowadays as well. And so all of those will help you as an angler. When I was first starting out, 12 years old, trying to figure out, 10 when I started, but 12 when I really started dialing into fly fishing, that trying to figure out those bugs was really, really tough. And so nowadays there's a ton of information out there. Use it to your advantage. As I said, watch the fish. Where are they feeding in the water column? And that will tell you a lot about what's going on as well. If you know your hatches before you come to the river, what's going on, what they're eating, what kind of bugs they have in the river, and you can tell from the fish behavior, are they eating on the bottom where they're eating nymphs? Are they eating in that middle river section, feeding up? Then they're hitting emergers. If they are up near that water surface or breaking the water surface, they're on that emerger at the surface, and then they could be on duns if it's a real splashy rise as well. Or if they are just sipping bugs out of the film later in the day, it's probably spinners, which means the adult who's come back to lay their eggs, they're on the water, they oftentimes die on the water, and they are free food like floating corn dogs. So that makes it easier to tell what you are on. Finding the actual bug, knowing what it is. If they are mayfly duns coming off, and you see a size 16 mayfly dun, you can be pretty sure that you're going to be throwing a 14 or a 16 mayfly nymph to mimic that dun. And so that puts you in the ballpark. Same thing with caddis. If you are seeing caddis on the stream side, adult caddis, that means that the immature version, the larva and the pupa, are hatching as well. And so find the size of that stream side bug, and that will tell you what size the nymphs are underwater as well, because you can't get a size 16 caddis from a size 12 nymph, and you can't get a size 6 stonefly from a size 14 stonefly nymph. And so finding the adults and the remnants stream side will tell you. A couple other things that you can do. You could seine the river, where you just put the seine in, see what's in the drift, see what's floating down, pick up whatever bugs you have. And so you can do that. Or you can stomach pump, which is controversial. I actually wrote an article on stomach pumping. It's very safe if you do it right, but you have to catch a fish first. But once you do, that will tell you exactly what the fish are eating. If you do the stomach pump, do it properly, don't harm the fish, then that is like detailed behind the scenes information, because that fish will tell you exactly what they are feeding on. So it's an easy way to tell if you can catch a fish first. How do we do that? Well, if you don't know, you've done your recon and you have an understanding of what might be coming off right now, but you don't see anything. There's no environmental cues for you. Bracket to start. Use a 2-fly rig that obviously, if there are fish popping on the surface, you'll be able to tell what bug they're eating because you'll see those adult bugs coming off. So we'll eliminate that dry fly section. But if we're throwing nymphs, throw a 2-fly rig with 2 different flavors. Say a caddis pupa at that mid-water column or the dropper fly, and then a mayfly down below as your point fly. And you can put split shot underneath it. You can throw the European-style nymphs to try to sink them. Whatever your style of nymph fishing is, you can go ahead and do that. Again, articles, fwfishing.com, about how to nymph if you're just getting started.
It is a standard nymph and indicator setup. We've got thingamabobber up top. You could use essentially any strike indicator. We're going with white to match the foam because we're fishermen and superstitious like that. And then we've got a 2-nymph rig on droppers. Mike likes them on droppers because it separates it off from the fly line. It's not inline. You don't have fly line coming out of both sides of the nymph. But weight below, and it's almost like a drop shot rig for bass, where you get your weight on the bottom as it drags, and it suspends these nymphs just off the bottom, and they'll grab it as it comes through. And it's been very effective so far. Plenty of big fish on this stuff. And again, using small, tiny flies. And they're eating the heck out of them.
But take those 2 different flies, 2 different sizes, and work them in all the good looking water. And then if nothing grabs on that, switch it out. Try something else. Try going to a stonefly on the bottom bug and a mayfly up above, or just work your way through the rotation of bugs. You can put crest bugs on there. You can put scuds on there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's tons of options out there. And so with the recon that you did on the fly shop and on the internet, and then going through the process of eliminating or prospecting, in this case, with a 2-fly rig with flies of different size, then you're going to be able to narrow down what fish are eating. Now, do remember that there are times of the day when fishing is better. When the bugs are in the drift is a great time to be fishing because the trout are seeing a bunch of bugs subsurface that they can feed on. When a hatch starts, you have emergers moving, you have nymphs being active, they get kicked off into the water, so that's a great time to fish as well. And so fish will feed more actively during those times. Sometimes you're just in a lull. Fish aren't eating, they just got done with the drift, the hatch hasn't started yet, they just get done with the hatch, and there's nothing else going on, and the fish kind of settle down into their spot. So fishing is a game of creating as many opportunities to catch fish as possible. Knowing how to get to the right fly size, knowing what to look for in the bugs on the river, knowing how to understand the life stage of the fly, and then eventually getting down to matching the bug that the trout are eating to the bugs that you have in your box is absolutely essential. So a lot of information there. I hope I helped you out. Don't forget, subscribe, give us a thumbs up, leave me a comment down below. And I'd love to hear from you. If you take this information out to the stream and you have success with it, give me a comment. If you don't have success with it, give me a comment. Tell me what happened. I'd love to hear back from you guys. I'd love to hear what you guys want to learn about fly fishing. Obviously, if you've been fly fishing for a long time, you have a good understanding of how to go about eliminating flies or picking flies for the day. But for you new guys out there, this information will help you. I remember standing there scratching my head, trying to pick a fly, trying to figure out how to choose fly size, and having a rough time. So I hope this video helps you. I appreciate you guys watching. Don't forget, fwfishing.com. Check out the blog. Check out all the info we have there. And we'll talk to you again soon.